Welcome. We'll start with the IAS Mains Geography 2016 paper solutions for paper 2. We have covered paper 1 section A and B in separate classes, but for this paper we'll be covering both the sections in a single go. Now the first question was on map location. We have already covered that in the doorstep tutor, so you can just refer all the locations there. Now next question was explain the shifting of river courses and river capturing in Himalayas. Now to explain this question, you have to bring in a kind of historical perspective, how the pattern of rivers have changed over the course of time. So you can refer definitely this video which talks about the river courses and the concept of river capturing. So what happens is when a river is moving and you have a kind of another river that is coming close to it, this river would capture the other river, and as a result the path of this river would get diverted. So that is how we explain. So basically what is happening is this river is capturing this another river, and this would be the, for example, final path of the river. So this is how we explain the concept of river capturing. Now initially when we talk about Saraswati, it started flowing through the region of Churu in Rajasthan, and finally it shifted to Ahmedpur and joined Satluj. So there was a kind of shift in the course of river of Saraswati over the time, which shifted from Churu in Rajasthan to Ahmedpur, and finally it merged with Satluj river. Similarly happened at the Gaur city in Ganga. Now this Gaur city on Ganga was at the time of Palas, it was the capital of Pala. However, with course of time the river shifted, and now this city is totally deserted with no kind of active river flowing through this city. So the paths of river have changed over and over the years, and that is what you need to explain in the questions like these. Now next is spatial relationship of India with the neighboring countries. Here you have to mention India's relation with various countries. Now the most important aspect is when we consider the map of India, you have a small portion of Pak occupied Kashmir that is sharing the border with Afghanistan, and you must mention that. So you have the Pakistan border, you have Afghanistan, you have China, Nepal, Bhutan, Bangladesh and Myanmar as the closest neighbor. Then you have Sri Lanka which is separated from India by Pal Strait, and finally you have the Maldives island in Arabian Sea. So these are some of the important nations, and you need to explain the relationship. We'll also cover this in detail when we will further talk about the geography of India in detail. Now next is understanding agriculture intensity and bringing out the regional distribution in India. So agricultural intensity is basically the total cropped area by the net sown area. So for example, if I say I have a land mass which is this, and I am doing, so this is my total cropped area, but my net sown area, for example, is just this much. So this would be my net sown area out of the total cropped area. You have crops here, but they are not the part of the net produce, for example, the total produce, for example. So you have the cropping intensity as the gross cropped area divided by the net sown area into 100. Now states of Punjab, Himachal Pradesh, West Bengal, Haryana have the highest cropping intensity. That means these states kind of provide the optimal utilization of the soil, I would say. On the other hand, you have the dry areas of Rajasthan, Gujarat, Maharashtra and Karnataka, where you have the cropping intensity as low as 110%, in contrast to 180% nearly in Punjab. That shows a kind of regional variation or a kind of differences in regional distribution as it is asked in the question. So you need to highlight this on a map of India, explaining how there are regions of low density area and high density area, and how you can raise productivity by increasing the inputs that are being used. Now next question is discuss the role of spatial pattern of rainfall and temperature to delimit climatic classification. We have already covered climatic classification and climatic regions in detail in this lecture. As regards the STARM's classification, STARM believe there is a kind of 18 degree isotherm that divides the nation into two halves. The northern is the temperate or the continental zone, the southern is the tropical zone, which with kind of more humid and hot regions as compared to the northern region of this isotherm. So his main idea was dividing the nation based on temperature, and that was the main consideration under STARM's regionalization. We have covered that in detail, so you can refer that. Now next question is, describe the flood prone areas and the management problems in Ganga basin. So first of all, you need to explain the extent of Ganga plains. So it starts from the northern head of the tributary and the regions towards the starting of Ganga, originating from the Gangotri glacier. So you have UP, Bihar and West Bengal, which are the worst affected areas because it's the region where Ganga flows. Now when we come to eastern UP, you have floods in Ghagra, Rapti and Gandak rivers. If I talk about west, you have floods in Yamuna river. So the main Ganga as well as its tributaries have kind of floods in the monsoonal season. Now what could be the probable methods to prevent the flooding in this area? So you have the Ganga Flood Control Mission 1972 that was released, the Central Water Commission, National Disaster Management, the Flood Commission, which is the Rashtriya Baad Ayog 1980. This was reconsidered during 2003 by Rangacharya Committee, and the National Water Policy, which talks about optimal utilization and management of water resources, which was rectified in 2012. So you have to briefly mention all these and you have to explain how the active regions, the prone regions of Ganga floods and the geographical extent as well as the regions of maximum impact, and how to work around these measures in order to control the flood problems in this region. Explain the new industrial policy. You have to start when the question like this is asked, you have to start with the backdrop, stating the first policy which started in 1948, the changes that were brought about in 56 in the public sector, and finally in 91 you had the far reaching changes which were mainly the LPG liberalization, privatization and globalization. So you have to highlight the 1991 economic reforms, taking into consideration the previous reforms, and a kind of you have to build out a story out of how the industrial development took place in India. Now next, biotic resource regions in India, we have discussed this thoroughly. So now next question is ethnic disparities in Northeast India. Again a kind of contemporary question this time. So ethnic disparities have been in limelight for Northeast, specifically in these months. The Northeast has a unique kind of I could say political map, political location I would rather say, with nearly 6 international boundaries touching those regions, which are mainly China, Nepal, Bhutan, Myanmar and Bangladesh. So 5 of these touch for nearly 5,000 kilometers. Now again the Northeast has been rich in human resources, in economic resources, in natural resources. They have a kind of strategic location. The only path that connects it to the Indian mainland or the main region of India is the Siliguri corridor. So you have the kind of region of West Bengal that is the only connecting link for the Northeast to the India. So it has a kind of strategic location, numerous resources. This region has derived attention in the recent years, considering the area of special incentives, and the Naga insurgencies have been prominent in these areas, which have again hampered the development in this region. Now next, give an account of the development of renewable sources of resources of India. So you have to mention all the major renewable resources and the development that India has seen in the recent years. When we talked about the class on carbon trading, we explained how India is upcoming with more of renewable energy, and it's a kind of market capping in the renewable energy. So we have seen there has been an increase of nearly 25% over the past 3 decades. Wind energy has increased nearly 10 times, solar energy has increased by nearly 2500 megawatts. Then you have waste to power. So you have the concept of bioenergy and biomass that has been come into concept, utilization of hydel power. Then you have a recent mission that was Jawaharlal Nehru National Solar Mission, numerous wind projects and integrated energy policy that was released in 2006, which mainly focused on renewable energy. Now next is bring out the development of river water transport in India and its role in regional development. Now this has been recently important. One of the most important thing that you must mention here is the Sagarmala project, considering the fact that India government believes that India is home to numerous river channels. If these river channels are properly utilized, it could provide a kind of cheap, efficient and affordable means of communication. India utilizes not even 1% of the national waterways it should, as compared to China on the other hand, which has a utilization of more than 30% of the river channels or waterways that has been used. So there is a kind of big way to go for us to utilize the river channels. So there should be passenger movements, cargo movements. It would be more environmental friendly as compared to other methods of transportation. So what you have to highlight is the national waterways. Now recently for 2016 there have been 5 major waterways that are to be commissioned and that are in the process of being commissioning. We would be covering that in a separate session. When we will cover the map location class, we will be covering those national waterways. So you have to mention all that in detail. Now next is impact of economic development on environmental degradation. Now economic development, we have tried to bring in rickshaws, auto rickshaws, cars, automobiles, electronics. So what is ultimately happening? We are ultimately creating a burden on the society. That burden can be in form of pollution, when we say more of carbon dioxide emissions. When I talk about electronics, it can be in form of e-waste that is being generated. So all these directly and indirectly affect the environment and the quality of environment. Environmental Kuznets curve is something that you must and must mention in the questions like these, because this curve explains a relationship between the economic growth and the environment, and they say he believed that there is a kind of positive relationship that exists between the two. Now carbon has been a main concern in the recent years, and here are some of the ways that you can consider while talking about carbon stabilization. So it is shifting to more efficient technology, less energy conservation. So the concept of Ujala Yojana, LED bulbs would all fall under this. Alternative use of feedstock with lower carbon content, carbon capturing, and the exhaust from the industrial application should be reduced. Now next is distribution of black soil and their uses for agriculture, again a direct question. Factors influencing distribution of sex ratio in India. Now you can see there is a kind of huge disparity in sex ratio. You have kind of Kerala and southern states which are performing very well. On the other hand, you have Punjab and Haryana which have a kind of drastically low sex ratio as compared to the rest of the nation. Now here are some of the points that mainly affect it. Predominantly the male dominated society. Then there are small populations, the sections of a small population, they have a kind of skewed sex ratio that is usually seen because they find it difficult for their religion to survive, for example, I could say. Then the income level, medical facilities, education level, the economic growth, specifically female education and religion are some of the major factors that affect the distribution of the varying distribution of sex ratio in India. Now Bokaro Iron Steel Plant is an example of industrial complex. How? Bokaro and Bhilai are two of the plants which have actually developed as a industrial cluster or a industrial complex, I would say. They have developed themselves as a kind of integrated system. Initially, Bokaro plant, for example, was established with Soviet collaboration, and when it was established, it was just a kind of steel plant. Later on, allied services, allied steel industries came up. So you had iron ore finds, limestone, then you had manganese ore that was handled, and so on and so forth. So you had a kind of main plant which was steel, but you had a kind of related development that took place. So here you could also explain how the growth pole theory works, and you can explain how kind of region developed sucking in, or I could say absorbing ingredients or raw materials from the nearby locations. The similar was the case with Bhilai, because Bhilai was, when it was established, it was predominantly a tribal and a forest area with not much of industrial activities in and around the region, but slowly and gradually it also turned out into an industrial complex. Next question, how do slums develop? Give concrete examples for improvement. Now I can say there are some cities which have a kind of suction mechanism, which have a kind of pull effect from the nearby regions. So you have a rural vicinity which brings in population to the main urban center, and then I could also say there has been migration from small urban areas to metropolitans. So all these kind of migration create a rapid movement towards bigger cities. As a result, what happens is there is lack of immediate amenities, immediate housing issues, and as a result you have development of slums. As you can see, you won't find slums near a rural area. In the vicinity, I could say in the extremes of Rajasthan, you won't find kind of well developed slum in the areas of Jaisalmer. However, you would find numerous slums in Delhi, Mumbai. So all these metropolitans which have created a kind of pull effect. When we talk about the theory of migration, we had the pull effect and the push effect theories. So if we work on those, we understand how these centers have been pulling in people for jobs, for industries, for as laborers. So there have been seasonal migration, and people who are definitely having a kind of seasonal migration, or I could say 6 months migration or 3 months migration, won't go into a proper housing society. So those are kind of issues that you need to deal with. What are the suggestions for improvement? The first of all, the important suggestion is the recent Yojana, that's housing for all. So you have to provide basic housing facilities, proper water facilities, sewerage facilities, waste collection methods. You must develop the social amenities. Now there have been various programs that have come in this lieu. The first of them is the National Slum Development Program, which was launched in 1996. Then you have the Urban Low Cost Sanitation, launched in 1980. You also have some of the specific programs which are region specific. For example, Urban Ashray Housing Program released by Karnataka government. Then you have the Maitri Housing Scheme released by Kerala government. So these are the efforts on behalf of state. So you must mention the case studies as well as the general scenario and questions like these. Now the role of India in geopolitics of South Asia. This we will cover in detail when we will be talking about the political geography of India. It was basically the concept that was given by Dudley Stump when he talked about Indian subcontinent. He said Indian subcontinent is unique to itself because this continent separates India from the rest of the countries by the Himalayas. As a result, it has a kind of distinct flora and fauna that exists. Over the years, India has kept its democracy alive and has been a kind of has played a leading role in among all the South Asian nations. There have been major rivers that have been flowing through this region and have brought prosperity. So you have a kind of geographical and political situation that you must mention, and you must have a map in the questions like these to explain the actual status of India. Now next is analyze the pattern of India's trade with Southeast Asian countries. Now when we talk about trade, there are basically two types of trade that work on. The one is ex post trade and another is ex ante trade. When I talk about ex post trade, that means an economy is open to the export and the import that works around. So it is open to exports and imports. However, when I talk about ex ante trade, it talks about the passiveness, that means the resistance of the nation for policy creations for export and import. So it's a kind of trade which tries to restrict export and import behavior. Now in 1950 you had the GATT that came into existence, and in 1995 you had WTO, and based on that there had been numerous changes in the trade patterns of the world. However, the Southeast Asian nations account for 11% of India's total export and 9% of total imports. Now most of the imports from Asia into India are mainly electronics, electrical machineries, palm oil, fuels, gem and jewelry. So you have to mention the major exports, the major imports in and out of India to Southeast Asia and so on, and vice versa I could say, and you must have a table of the major imports and exports from India to Southeast Asia and vice versa. Now next is present a comparative analysis of geographical factors which are responsible for distribution of human settlements in Rajasthan deserts and northeast regions. Now when we talk about Rajasthan and northeast, these two regions have been a kind of regions which have been having extremes of climatic conditions first of all. So there is mainly a geographical limitation that comes into move, and when we are trying to comparatively analyze the factors responsible for distribution, we must focus on the climatic condition. So it's a kind of extreme arid to extreme humid. So you have extreme humid and extreme arid conditions. As a result, the settlement patterns that would be required in a desert area would be in and around the oasis. However, in the northeast regions, you have to create shelters in the remote pockets which are away from the dense forest areas. So you have to explain how the geographical factors have played a major role in establishment of settlements in this area, and how this has led to a kind of low population density in both of these areas, I would say. Now next question is suitable examples for role of road transport in agricultural development. Now roads have been the lifeline for India. They have been the main idea I would say is to provide infrastructure which would provide easy accessibility, finally increase the mobility and improve the welfare of the people. As a result, you need to have extension of the services which could be provided with good transport services. This would lead to maximizing of profits, increase in the demand for goods, price stabilization, then you would have good connectivity, it would promote door-to-door collections, and specifically for the perishable commodities in fruit and vegetables as well as dairy products would have a kind of good subsistence if you have a good road connectivity or good transport that is provided to the rural areas. Next is evaluate the impact of technology on resource utilization in India. Now this question only and only focuses on the concept of clean technology, which has been again a contemporary issue and has been in news recently because again of the main idea that we discussed in the class on carbon trading. So the focus on renewable energy has increased over the years. As a result, the impact of technology on resource utilization is mainly governed by solar technology, biomass, wind energy, geothermal energy, nanotechnology and developments, so on and so forth. The next is location, distribution and problems of cotton textile industries in India. To answer this question, you have to work out by region by region. So what I have considered here is a region of Western India, mainly Gujarat and Maharashtra, which are the key producers for cotton textile industries. They are most advanced. They have easy accessibility to raw material and water supply. Again, cotton textile industries must be located into the regions which are close to the areas of cotton production, because cotton, according to the Weber's theory, we know cotton, if the raw material is bulky to transport, it would fetch you huge transportation costs and won't be viable solution. As a result, you have kind of cotton textile industries located mainly close to the cotton producing areas. Again, Gujarat and Maharashtra have been good examples because they have humid climate which is required for spinning, good port facilities, large communities which can invest capital, cheap labor, good demand and good transportation. However, Indian cotton textile industry is struggling because of the few reasons. First is the obsolete technology they are using, then the competition with the synthetic fiber that is cropping up. You have high production cost that is required. As a result, this cotton textile industry is not as competitive as a kind of synthetic industry is in the market. Now next is describe the major tribal regions of India and their problems. So you have to pinpoint the major tribal pockets in India, mainly Chhattisgarh, Odisha, Jharkhand, Madhya Pradesh and Northeast. Then you have to explain how these tribal pockets have small land holdings. Some of them are landless. They mainly prefer shifting cultivation, which is not a sustainable or a viable means of livelihood. Low literacy, low education levels, more involvement in primary activities, less involvement in secondary and tertiary activities, and numerous tribal regions are exploited in the name of religion. So these are some of the major things that you must bring out while attempting a question like this, and also you should mention the government policies and the government initiatives that have been taken up for tribal welfare. Now the cause of regional disparity and economic development in India we have already covered in these lectures. So just a brief idea, the basic cause of regional disparity, I would say you have to mention all the points: geographical aspects, the political aspects, the economic aspects, and finally you have to bring out significant impact from the economic perspective, how that has affected the economy of India. The cause and effect of urbanization in India and its impact on rural landscape. So causes, you must mention the cause of industrialization and employment, modernization and education has affected the rural area. Again, you have the effects of urbanization, which is mainly overpopulation, increased crime rate, impersonal relationships, more of pollution and stress levels. So as we can see in this paper, there was two major focus: improvement of urban areas. So there were two questions. One was on directly on urbanization, the causes and effect, and another was on slum and the problems of slums, which were focused related to housing and Awas Yojanas. The other section was totally related to the agriculture and the rural perspectives. So both these two form the major section of this time's paper. The next was India has been paying heavily for the achievement of green revolution in the form of economic, social and ecological cost. Now green revolution has no doubt brought about drastic changes and drastic improvement in the productivity, but at what cost we need to understand. So this question predominantly focuses on understanding the negative aspects of green revolution, and if we try to bring in a next revolution, what could be taken into consideration. So when we talk about questions like these, you have to briefly explain the idea of green revolution, how it was laid forward, and the two phases of green revolution, and then straightforwardly move on to the drawbacks. The major drawbacks being the cropping pattern was unsustainable. There was over exploitation of the groundwater in the regions where you had canal irrigation that was planned, that led to problem of waterlogging and ultimately salinity issues, as in the case of Indira Gandhi Nahar Pariyojana in Rajasthan. Then you have excessive use of fertilizers and pesticides. Ultimately, the breeds or the species became resistant to the fertilizers and the pesticides which were used to such an extent that it became a kind of havoc, or these species became so antibiotic resistant that they created more persistent problems and persistent infections into the agricultural produce. So these are some of the main ideas that you must discuss. The next is the Sino-Indian border disputes, that's the India-China dispute. So you have to start with the Shimla agreement, starting with the British India and China and the McMahon line of control. 1954, that came in with the Panchsheel agreement. Then you had 59, where you had the Dalai Lama asylum that took place. In 62, the Indo-China war, and how China occupied the regions of Aksai Chin and Arunachal Pradesh, but finally China had to withdraw from Arunachal Pradesh. However, China still calls Arunachal Pradesh as South Tibet, and it believes that Arunachal is a part of Chinese territory. You have the northeast region, that's the region in Jammu Kashmir. You have the Aksai Chin region, which has been under the actual line of control, the LAC, the line of actual control that exists. And India has numerous threats from China, mainly due to investments in the Pak occupied Kashmir. So what China is doing is investing in Pak occupied Kashmir at kind of enormous expense that it is bearing into its defense industry. So these are some of the threats mainly that affect India. With this we cover the paper for 2016, paper 2. We'll be definitely covering the important topics which were missed in the lectures till now, in the further lectures. Recently we'll be covering Lodge theory, which has been in demand from most of the aspirants. Have a good day ahead.